Peace and blessings to all. I am back. My last recording was inadvertently disconnected. I had to find my charger for my device in which I'm making this video. This video is about the nature of Black trauma being viewed as something that's hilarious. And throughout the course of time, we have underestimated the power of our words, the power of our laughter when it comes to Black trauma and the exploitation of Black trauma throughout social media, over various platforms. One of the things that I find to be, quite interesting when it comes to Black trauma is that um, we tend to not understand the energy aspect because everything is energy, you know, and because everything is energy, our laughter, we have to be careful energetically on what we laugh at because, sometimes we laugh at things not knowing the energy frequency of the laughter. What does that do? Does it perpetuates the trauma? Well, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look. When we see someone going through a traumatic event, when we see the level of trauma that's happening and we laugh at it, we are actually reinforcing because the laughter is energy. So when we ha ha ha, that's an energy projection. That energy projection is encoded, it's infused with the whole idea and the intentions of what the laughter is about. It is collected by universal consciousness to help perpetuate what we're laughing at. So when we laugh at Black trauma, what we're doing is empowering it in the spirit realm. And in all seriousness, that's an act of trauma itself. Number two, the exploitation of trauma. We tend to exploit our own traumas through jokes. We exploit it. That's why people say, well, never make fun of yourself. Because when you do so, you make fun of yourself, you're empowering the energy of what you're making fun of. You're keeping it in motion. In my previous video that was disconnected, I began speaking about a house fire I was in. I was in a fire up in Maryland. And, one of the strangest things that happened is that when the building blew up and was on fire and everybody running and screaming for their lives and trying to save one another from the burning building, there were people across the street holding up phones and they were recording it live on Facebook or whatnot while people are trying to save one another from a burning building. And even years later, as me and that person may have spoke about it and other people continue to talk about it who were involved in the fire, we realized that we were traumatized not only by the fire itself, but by seeing and experiencing people laughing at it. Some people were laughing and other people were recording it. And I realized that it traumatized me. That was something that I had to work on it. And even now today, I still work on myself with that. because I'm like, wow, there were people that actually recorded the trauma instead of helping and assisting. The same thing happens in car accidents out in society. Um, in society, we travel up the interstate back and forth, and people see accidents and stuff on the interstate. People see these accidents and they tend to keep going, while there are people that's actually be hurt in those cars. There are people hurt in those cars, and people just keep going about their business. No one wants to stop, and until a good Samaritan, someone with a good heart, say, man, I'm gonna stop and help these people who are hurt in a car accident. Other people would ride by with their phones in their hands, and they would record it for various reasons. What that does, when people see that and experience that, they become traumatized. And so the purpose of Black Trauma is Hilarious is not to make a joke of it. It's not a joke. I chose that topic mainly because that topic is like, wow, what is he talking about? Like, where are we going with this? But where we're going is that over social media, since its inception, Black trauma has been exploited for monetary gain. All energetically, what that does is perpetuates vampiristic energy, people feeding off of what someone is going through at that particular time. Like people record people on drugs and make fun of them. People record others in unfortunate situations and make fun of them. If you're going to record someone, I think personally, if you're going to record someone in an unfortunate situation, then record yourself helping them. That's not exploitation. That's actually an invitation for others to say, hey, I remember this guy from the video where that person or this person helped them. Let me help them too, from that perspective. Black trauma, we can take it back to our families. And in a previous video, I spoke about what creates a YN. YNs are created from being abused at home. I really commend women in general because women are more expressive with their with their trauma. They speak out about it. But men, we're pre-programmed not to speak about it. Like we're just pre-programmed to say, hey, you know what? We're not going to speak about our trauma. So with men, what we do, we create this artificial image of bravado, cover ourselves with jewelry, nice clothes, cars, and we flaunt those things as masks for the unresolved trauma that we have. And even in the circle of men, we laugh at each other's trauma. Oh, he come from his mama's a crackhead. Ha, ha, ha. His father's a crackhead. Ha, ha, ha. He live in the projects. Ha, ha, ha. I'm better than him or her. Ha, ha, ha. Have to remember, ha, ha, ha is an energy projection. We're putting it out there with the intent encoded in that laughter to continue the cycle. And from an energetic perspective, we have no clue or no understanding how we are becoming self-inflicting energy vampires to our own traumatic experiences. And higher up in the spirit realm, there is a discussion being had that we are continuously keeping the cycle going. And I think from a personal perspective, that's, genocidal. It's called spiritual genocide. When we energetically interact with one another in ways that perpetuates each other's trauma by making fun of it. And over social media, this phenomenon has become a huge thing. Exploitation of each other's trauma for monetary gain. Money is a currency, it's energy. So we exchange our laughter of trauma for monetary gain. You see? It's very dangerous because it threatens the existence of the whole race. In the spirit realm, it threatens the existence. It diminishes the timelines and the lifelines within those timelines. It cuts our timeline here in the physical realm shorter because there will be other races, other ethnic groups that will feed off of the energy of us laughing at our trauma. We're energizing the oppressors by doing so. Men in general, because we come from traumatic experiences and we're pre-programmed to mask what we are going through, we create false personas on social media, online, even in real life. We create these false personas about ourselves. And not understanding that these false personas are created to cover the traumatic experiences. So when I say what creates a YN, what creates a young, N, what creates that? Traumatic experiences. And it could come from upper class. Being wealthy don't mean nothing. Middle class or lower class. These traumas that they experience in their home, and it gets deep. It comes from parents favoring other children over others. And that's why as parents, we have to be extremely careful on how we treat our children, how we interact with our children, because when we do so, when we favor one child over another, what happens is we're abandoning, emotionally ostracizing one child because we're favoring another. Children have feelings, and in their mind states, they're processing that definitely as trauma. So what are we to do? What happens there? What really happens is that these children find outlets of expression. They go into continuous cycles of searching for love that they're witnessing one child in their house get, or the other siblings get, that they don't get. So what happens? They look for outlets. Some people go live with their grandmother, or they run away from home. They go into the streets. In the streets, I'll put it like this. The streets is a compilation of abandoned, abused young men. Because if these young men were raised in a healthy environment, in a healthy home, they would have never resorted to the streets. They would have never went out in the streets because they would feel comfortable and safe. They would have a safe place. The reason why the majority of young kids go out into the streets is because they have no safe place at home. And this is what's creating this generation of children that's out there right now, who turn up to be adults involved in criminal activity, crime, and all kind of nefarious things just for survival. It's not like that what they wanted to do. They didn't want it to go out there and adopt those philosophies and principles and codes that goes against their own existence. They don't want to do that. They never did. Being abandoned as a child, here's what it does. It creates hypersensitive, hyper vigilant, and hyper sexual. And this is why we have so many young guys in the street that don't trust a relationship. They don't trust relationships with women, hell, even amongst themselves. And that's because the hypersexual aspect is that they're searching for love. They're searching for love. And they want to have multiple sexual experiences. And these multiple sexual experiences are a byproduct of not being properly loved at home. So they're seeking love through sexual gratification continuously. And it creates it creates a whole collage of mess, chaos, and madness. And so what I'm here to say today is that moving towards a corrective measure, I think, and understanding that there is a solution to the problem. And I think that the solution to the problem itself, especially hypersexual behaviors amongst men, the problem is proper loving your younger sons, not choosing one child over another, favoring children over other children, because that's extremely dangerous to the psychology of a child. I think it's very important that we move and put ourselves in positions to understand as parents that there has to be a perfect balance of love amongst all of our children. Because when you don't love one child properly and you over loving another, is definitely felt. And it creates all types of madness. Like I say, even and one of the greatest ones is hypersexuality. Not being loved properly as a child, what it does is it makes men question their sexuality. It makes men question their manhood. And they have to go through those processes and changes of rediscovering themselves on their own. And this is why we wonder why relationships are not working today. Relationships are not working because ultimately, it's from abandonment. So, and looking at it from a psychological perspective, it's part of the compounded trauma, where there's trauma piled up and piled up and piled up on top of itself over and over and over again. In our environments, in our communities, there is reinforcements of trauma. Like, we don't reinforce positive principles. We're in a cycle of reinforcing negative principles that reinforces trauma, which causes people who don't understand the type of trauma that they're living in, it causes them to become vampiristic to their own trauma. So now we have a whole community of people feeding off of one another's trauma for what? Monetary gain. And what happens is we're empowering our own disenfranchisement when we do things like that. We're empowering the emasculation of men through hypersexualities. And the honest truth about it, I'm from the hood, and I understand that fighting through trauma, have to fight through trauma. And fighting through trauma, we go through those stages, if men want to admit it or not. We go through those stages where we question everything from our existence, sexuality, um, mentalities. We question the environment, who we are in that environment. And then we're shaped and molded by societal pressures. We observe the exploitation. Because one thing about like in the hood or so-called in the streets, we find exploitation of trauma to be at a magnitude, a very high magnitude. Hood fights and, you know, all of these things, hood drama, all of those things are extremely exploited for monetary gain. Psychologically, when we look and observe and look at these videos and we see these things, we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing? We're inputting information about someone else's trauma into our mind. And when we input someone else's traumas into our mind, what it does is activates and reinforces our existing traumas. Like I say, Black men and men in general, we're pre-programmed, like I said, not to even talk about our trauma. Hold it in. That's what we're taught. Hold it in. And then as we move through life in America full of compounded trauma, meaning that there's consistent trauma thrown at us over and over and over again. And as men, we're taught to hold it in, hold it in, hold it in, hold it in. Next thing you know, we're a walking time bomb. We are walking time bombs. And they wonder why there is so much anger in the Black community. We want so much anger with Black men against other Black men. Now, that could be exemplified as the disenfranchisement between Black men and their fathers, and we take it out on each other because we're seeking love from one another, which is an example of the love that we never got from our fathers. We're seeking love from various women over and over again. Like, we can't get enough. The hypersexuality is something that's, you know, it's a lifetime journey. And we have to become solidified in who we are moving forward. You know, like I said, many men question who they are. You know, it's not about what you like, what you don't like. It's the fact that you're going through the process of questioning who you are. And as you go through that process, we ultimately, some people go through experimental phases. Yeah, that is true. And then they discover who they are and they move with it. Other people will witness people going through those phrases and then phases and processes, and they exploit it. It's exploited. It's exploitive. And this is one of the reasons why it's not addressed. Like, men don't address it. Like, you know, because they feel like, hey, man, it's better not to address that stuff versus addressing it head on. Because if we address it head on, then all the exploiters, all the vampires come running. All the vampires come running because they are looking to exploit your experiences. You know, being truly transparent about the exploitation of Black trauma is one of the most hardest thing to do, because we live in a culture based on entertainment. Like, everything is a form of entertainment. You know, something good happens, that's a form of entertainment. We're going to entertain the good, but we entertain so much negativity that we're becoming self-inflicted vampires of our own demise. And so it's very important for us to understand that Black trauma is not hilarious. Like, that part of our culture needs to stop. You know, it'll be in our best interest to stop it, because we can't get mad when other people exploit our laughter at our own traumas, our laughter at our brothers and sisters going through, you know, various things, or coming from a bad environment and trying to find themselves, trying to do good, trying to give back to society. You know, it's very important, man, especially if you come from a traumatic experience. People are different. Some people come from traumatic experiences and they want to like continue the trauma because they've been traumatized. They want to go out and traumatize others. That's their reaction to their trauma, what they went through. And then there's others, especially such as myself. You kind of go through a lot of trauma in life. And what you end up doing is you internalize it, process it, you do the work, you try to heal yourself, and then you never want to be like the energy that traumatized you. You don't want to be like that. You want to be unlike that. You know what I mean? You want to be totally different, man, for real. And it's serious. But everybody process trauma differently. Some people process it in a way like, man, I don't want nobody to go through what I went through. I would never want that for nobody. And so you want to perpetuate the best and put out the best energy that you can into the world, give back to the world. And so some of us, like myself personally, been to prison and things like that. And when I came home, my whole idea was to, I slipped, fall, got up, fall, got up, fall, got up, and then realized, like, man, I got to get out of the environment that created my trauma and moved on. And so what happened is you tighten yourself up, tighten up, and you try to give back to society because you feel like what you've been doing in the past, you took away from the community or communities that you were in. And now you want to give back. You want to add back, give back, put people in positions to win, encourage people, inspire people, because you don't want no one to go through what you went through. And that's part of a healing process. But when we have people and energies, energy vampires are real and they will feed off of anything. And it's not about clout, it's a spirit. Just like the slave master. People look at the slave master energy. That's the slave master is a spirit. It's a slave master spirit that's in people that continuously wants to traumatize, oppress, and dominate others. And that undying need for power, even when they get the power, they still want more. And that's a spirit. That's a spiritual energy that we have to look for. So, and that energy, it jumps bodies. It's not just an energy of white people or Africans or Asians. That's a spirit that jumps from all over. So there are oppressed peoples all over the world, everywhere, in Congo, Angola, even in China, Japan, Korea, all over Africa, Europe, South America, North America. There is people being traumatized by their government. And as a result, people that mimic the government wanting power get in power and don't know how to use the power. And as a result, powerful people create rules, standards, regulations, and even perpetuate cultures that continues to traumatize people. So when I say that American people are overly traumatized, it's real. And if we were to laugh at it, we are empowering the ideals, philosophies, principles, and agendas of the oppressors. And when I speak about oppressors, I'm not just talking about white people, because there's the Black Boule that is actually part of the oppressive system. And if you want to break the system, you cannot break the system by participating in the system. That's a lifelong lesson I've learned. You can't break a system. You can't challenge a system as you participate in it. You can't say, well, I'm not in the government, but you're perpetuating government principles. You're perpetuating government ideals. You're perpetuating cultures that they want you to propagate. They want you to do it. They say, hey, here's some advertisement money. Here's some things you can here's some endorsements. We like what you're doing. If they like what you're doing, then you're probably most likely doing the wrong thing. And so when I say Black trauma is not to be laughed at, that's very serious. Like I said earlier, it's spiritual energy. So when we laugh at people that's downtrodden, that's spiritual energy. Now look, this is my book, right? Rootscraft. And the Book of Ancestral Empowerment. I'm going to read something out here really quick. And this talks about, gaining like spiritual power and having that spiritual ability. I'm gonna tell you guys, man, like all of you guys are extremely powerful. I believe that, Black people by default are supernatural. I think the experiences that we went through collectively, we kind of developed a supernatural ability based on our experiences. So in this book, I'm reading from, let's see what chapter I'm in. I'm in chapter 3. Chapter 3, page 95 of the Book of Ancestral Empowerment. It says, our birthright entails having authority to create understandings based on our experiences. Let unity be your spirit vessel as you extract all of the elements of your magic from it. And say our ancestors established institutions that perpetuated ideals that would encourage the members of our communities to live through spiritual paradigms. Those paradigms exemplify the most progressive elements of our ancient ancestral society. From these paradigms, civilizations rose and fell. The reason for the spiritual failures of society is because man has been programmed by a culture that is parasitic to spiritual development. The parasitic nature of Eurocentric society depletes the life of every culture it comes into contact with. Now, have we become parasites to our own culture? The answer to that is yes. We have become parasitic to our own progress. We have become parasitic to our own healing. We have become parasitic to the healing of others. Parasitic behaviors that we can have is the behavior of laughing and monetizing the traumatic experiences of others. This is what blocks a lot of people from speaking about their traumas, because they're sitting back watching other people laughed at, mocked, and ridiculed. And what that does, it makes them bottle up their trauma even more, which exasperates the problems, makes it worse for others. And this pattern goes on and on and on, and it's never broken. And until we break that cycle, we're going to be stuck right there, laughing at each other's trauma, spiritually empowering our oppressors over our own progress. That is one of the most highest principles and highest things on our, get it right vision board, if we may say, that we need to do. Stop exploiting Black trauma. The exploitation of Black trauma is genocide. Absolute genocide. No matter if we like the person or not, we shouldn't do that. And I've learned, because it gets to the point to where the real oppressors would come in and help you. They would come in and help you. They would help you destroy your own brothers and sisters. They will help you destroy yourself once they see that you're exploiting experiences of your own people through laughter. Now, I know they say laughter heals the soul. Yeah, it heals the soul when you're laughing at something that's positive. But when you're laughing at someone's pain, at someone's struggle, someone's torture, or, being gang stalked or whatever it is, when you're laughing at that kind of stuff, you're empowering it. Absolutely empowering it. And the more you empower it, the more you disenfranchise your own self. You're tearing yourself down. If I tear you down, I'm tearing myself down. And I learned that from being present on social media in the past. I probably have never been, the best camper over social media in the past, getting involved in crazy work. I've learned definitely, absolutely, to stay away from that energy because it's parasitic. And once you allow those parasites into your spirit, you're going to behave just like the parasite. You're going to be fully entertained. We live in a society where entertainment is like the most viewed, the most liked thing. Like, we love entertainment. People watch football, basketball. Some people like to be entertained by trauma. And we have to be very careful. Enter is a word that says enter. When you say enter, that means in me. I'm going to contain that energy in me. I'm allowing something that someone else is experiencing that's negative to come inside of me. So what happens when it's time for me to do the inner work? When it's time for me to do the inner work, I've absorbed all of the traumas of others that I've entertained. That's why we don't entertain certain things. We bring solutions to it. So, but some people were programmed to bring a problem to a solution. You get it? Some people are programmed to bring a problem to a solution. So for every solution that you develop, every solution that you develop, there are people that will create a problem for it. You see? There are people who will create problems for every solution you develop. Unresolved trauma, unresolved issues, manufacturing of trauma. That's a big one. We live in a technological age right now. And I'm going to end it here. We live in a technological age right now where you have hackers. Like, people don't even understand what hacking is really about. Computer hacking, people get into your devices. I've made videos, right? I've made videos that I didn't release. I didn't release them. But in experiment and music, but in an experimental stage of trying to figure out expressing myself. I made these videos just to observe my own energy in the video. So I recorded it and I said, let me look at this. me feel the energy of this to see if I want to release this to the public. And I looked at the video. I said, oh, no, I don't want to put that out there. Deleted it. Hackers got it, stole it, took it, ran with it, and put it in other areas. I've made music, songs that I would never let anybody hear. But once they hack into your computer and stuff like that, they get those songs and they go run to people who they think you're talking about and say, see, he's talking about you. See, those are energy vampires. Those are people that continue the perpetuation of trauma. I'll be the first to tell you I'm not with that, man. No, I'm a whole warrior, but I'm a warrior for peace. I like my peace. I'm not into that. And so when I learned to check myself, nobody is uncheckable. Nobody. Me, you, him, and her. Nobody's uncheckable. But you got to check yourself. And so in the process of checking myself, I realized my position, and I'm just speaking in the third person. I realized my position in traumatic events that happened around me. But you got no control over other people trying to traumatize you, other people making a career of trying to traumatize you. You call somebody on your phone, they call the person behind you. And next thing you know, you meet up with people and things happen in the wrong way because it was intended like that. And if you defend yourself in any situation, if you defend yourself for real, that's a moral responsibility for you to defend yourself by all means necessary. And it's like, it don't matter who likes it or not. You have to do what you need to do what's best for you. And so in those situations, we understand that we're dealing with energy vampires, people who exploit Black trauma, people who exploit trauma in general. And we have to learn. We have to be very careful. And one thing I've learned is to be extremely careful about what we put out on social media, because this is being viewed by people and energies and spirits that makes a career off of the exploitation of others. And we have to be extremely careful because these energy vampires don't care who they hurt. They don't care who they hurt. They don't care who they get angry. They don't care male or female. They don't care. They don't. It's a sad reality, but they don't. The great divide is happening. That great divide is that people who are walking in the light must separate themselves from people who perpetuate darkness. Because if we don't, we'll be consumed by that darkness. We'll be consumed by it. You have organizations of energies that love to see conflict and confusion amongst you guys, amongst myself. And we have to learn how to dodge energy vampires. Because if we don't, the energy vampires will create conflicting situations in our community. When they import drugs and guns and put it in our community, they are exasperating trauma that's already there. And that's called compounded trauma. They know what they're doing. Why do you think cocaine? Why do you think fentanyl is prominent in Black communities? Because they know drug addicts do what? Get on drugs, you're going to commit some crime, you're going to become hypersexual, you're going to forget who you are, we're going to arrest you, you're going to fight one another, you're going to kill one another, you're going to be angry at one another. You're going to abandon one another. You're going to hurt one another. And these puppet masters, they sit back and they're laughing at our trauma that they manufactures. Then you have the J.P. Morgans that are invested in industrial prison complexes. They're invested in private prisons. They sit back, and what they do, they monetize your addiction by putting you in prison. They monetize your crime by putting you in prison. They monetize your hurt by getting you admitted into psychological institutions. It's a complete circle. It's a complete cycle that we have to break by not feeding it. Now, we have broken relationships amongst one another. And what I'll say about that is that I'm the same person, me personally, same person that you're seeing now in real life, same person. I think everybody has, a little dark side in them, because that's the part of us that we have to heal. So everybody has that. Let's just be real. And there's a part of us that we have to heal in order to develop high levels of intuition. We got to heal the parts of us that's unhealed. We got to travel through the valley of the dark soul and heal that stuff. So if you've been abused by your parents, you have to heal that. If you've been neglected by your parents, you have to heal that. Sometimes childhood trauma evolves into adult trauma. Most time it does evolve into adult trauma. So we become adults still traumatized with childhood wounds. How do we heal that? That's the number one question. Like, what do we do to put ourselves in position to heal that mess? We have to confront it. And in the act of confronting it, we're not confronting people. You're not confronting your parents. You're not confronting your father. You're not confronting your mother. You're confronting the spirit that's within them. The spirit of programmed bigotry, the spirit of programmed hate, the spirit of programmed phobias, the spirit of programmed distrust, and a spirit of misery. All of those energies are spirits. Let me tell you something about bigotry. Before I moved back home, I was viral on social media, making videos about my root work, and so on and so forth. And I didn't realize that my family, and this is a transparent moment, vulnerability, here it is. I didn't realize that my family was sitting back in group chats. They were sitting in group chats, watching my videos, talking about me. Because most of them Christian, but they hide, now the story how they hide it. I'm writing a book. Well, I already wrote the book, but I'm doing an audio book about my life to explain in detail. But the whole time I was away from my hometown, it was my own family was like the biggest haters. They wanted to break me down. But, I would call and talk to them, everything good. But then when I came back, I realized, wow, they got together as a group and decided to dislike me because of what my spiritual belief system is. I didn't know. Whole time I'm talking to him on the phone from a distance, I didn't know. When I came home, I felt that energy rawr, was monstrous. Consistent attacks, dislikes, stab in the back. And let me tell you something about getting stabbed in your back. Getting stabbed in your back, there's nothing really painful about it until you pull the knife out. Every knife has a name on it. Every knife. When you get stabbed in your back, every knife has a name on it. Each and every last one. And there's different types of knives. You know, some people stab you in your back with a butter knife. Some people stab you in your back with a plastic knife. Some people will stab you in your back with a pocket knife, switchblade. And then there are others that will stab you in your back with a butcher knife. That's right. Now, when we look at this, honestly, every knife has a name on it. And you look at the name, you pull a knife at your back, you look at the name on it, and it says mother, or it says father. That knife is the one that hurts the most. It really does. And trying to resolve trauma amongst your own family members, you would say, you know, I pull this knife on my back, I'm going to just throw it over there. You know, and try to fix the situation and let myself heal. What happens is they're so traumatized and they're still so stuck in the trauma that they'll take the knife and put it right back in your back again. And you tell them, hey, man, what are you doing? That hurts. That hurts. It hurts. And they do it again. They put the knife right up, put that knife right back, not knowing that they're perpetuating a cycle of non-healing. And when you tell them about the purpose of healing, they get angry. You're not talking to that person at that point. You're talking to the spirit that's in them. Now, we're being taught, you know, a lot of people teach over social media, get away and cut them off, get away, cut them off. Getting away and cutting them off is not a solution. Sometimes fixing the generational trauma that you inherited is the most painful thing you can do. You didn't bring that trauma here. You were born into a family that was full to the rim with trauma. This is how the black sheep was made. This is how the scapegoat is made. The black sheep is the one that's rejected. The scapegoat is the one where they take all your trauma and do this with it. They highlight it. Well, you did this. You did that. You did this and you did that. And they'll add on so much flavor to the sauce that it'll be unbelievable. Unbelievable. Because the expectation is for you to never heal. That's the expectation. You're not supposed to heal because this spirit that inhabits the spirit of your mother, your father, your cousin, your uncle, your sister, your brother, that spirit that's in them, the moment you speak up about that trauma, the moment you try to use any methods of trying to heal it, by pulling that knife out, they take that knife and put it right, and they'll sign their name on it again to make sure you know it came from them. Those are not people you're dealing with. You're dealing with possession. Possession, that's what you're dealing with. Now, obsession is a form of spiritual possession. I said that in the video. One of my videos, in one of my older videos, if you look on my YouTube page, you'll find a video that says, obsession is spiritual possession. When people become extremely obsessed with you, that means they have compounded trauma, and compounded trauma means you have compounded spirits in you. See, some people ain't walking with one evil spirit in them. They're walking with several evil spirits in them. 8, 9, 10. This is why in the religious scriptures, they say that we are legions. You know, they say we are legions because you don't get one demon in you, you get multiple of them. Because once you allow that spirit to take over your body, to take over your soul, then that spirit opens you wide up, And it calls other demons. It calls other spirits, the spirit of misery, the spirit of addiction. It calls all these other spirits into you too. Now you're fighting a battle, an internal battle, where it's just you and your guardian angel back to back. You know, you're throwing all the blows you can throw, fighting the great fight inside you, but you're still trying to maintain your existence. This is the fight that men fight. Many women fight this fight too. But men in general, in particular, we fight this great fight. You know, it was talking about DMX. I was talking about DMX. And DMX said that he was abused by his mother. That's what created him. Rest in peace. One of my most favorite artists. You know, he said his mother abused him. That's what drove him into the streets. That's what drove him onto drugs. And his music became a form of therapy. You see? Even though, like I say, he was exploited by record labels. He was exploited by the people around him, the energy vampires. He was exploited. His trauma was exploited. They made money off his trauma. A kiki laughing. Boy, we making some money off this crazy nigga. You see how that works? We make some money off this crazy nigga. But he can rap. Shh, we ain't gonna say nothing. We gonna get him to sign this deal. We gonna get him to do this. We gonna get him all over. We gonna exploit his trauma instead of finding the brother some real healing. And they laughed at it. Same thing with brother Kodak Black. The brother Kodak Black down in Florida. They laugh at, exploit his trauma, which exasperates it. Brother got a strong mind too. And I pray for him, man. I pray for Kodak every day. Because I want him to come out of that trauma. I want Kodak Black to prove him wrong. But not only prove him wrong, I want Kodak Black to defeat those demons, those energy vampires and parasites in and around him. I pray for that brother to cast away all of that stuff and heal himself. And he in the process of healing himself. Because you know what he did? He don't want people to go through what he going through. He don't want people to laugh at other people like how they laugh at him. So what he go do? He went to the projects or apartment building complexes and stuff, paid everybody rent. He been paying everybody rent for months now. He said, I'm going to pay everybody rent. Get yourself together. I don't want you to go through what I'm going through. I don't want you to go. You know, that's a heart. That's a person to be struggling themselves and still got the compassion to help other people while he being exploited, while he being laughed at, while he being manipulated. That brother still got the heart to help other people. Man, the Most High bless that man's soul. And that's real. It's authentic. And that's the kind of position that I have in life. I want the crackheads to get off crack. I want the meth smokers to get off meth. I want the drug addicts to get, I want the end of human trafficking, definitely. Because I'm guilty, man. And that's my accountability. And this is why I say it's not funny. This is why I say none of this is funny. I've been in positions in my past timeline, because I'm a timeline jumper. You don't know, I quantum leaps. But it ain't funny. I've quantum leaped from timeline to timeline based on survival. Yeah. Based on survival, I've had to jump timelines, man. Because that was the only thing I could do to survive. So, I've been to the penitentiary. Yeah, of course. I used to sling iron. That's nothing to talk about. That's not nothing to be proud of either. But I did those things. I've been involved in prostitution rings. Yeah. I used to participate in it. Got myself in so much trouble I can't even, Lord. Had to protect myself. Not hurt nobody, but protect myself. Yeah. Because it's dangerous in those realms of darkness. It's extremely dangerous. Yeah. And I'm not proud of that. But I've learned to transmute that darkness. I've learned to transmute that energy into saying, you know what? I'm going to give back. Now, when I first came out in the spiritual community, yeah, I've been involved with some bad energies. Yeah, I admit. Definitely involved with bad energies. When I first came out here, oh my God, Most High is my witness. I've been involved in set up energies, extremely bad energies, vampiristic energies, and everything. And I had to remove myself from those environments. That's why I'm here. That's why you guys see me on YouTube. I'm out of those environments because those environments are self-serving and not for me. It may be for others based on their level of development, but my level of development, I don't need to be there. I don't. Real talk. And so what I've learned from jumping timelines, some people say shape-shifting, quantum leaping from timeline to timeline. And what that really means is you walking in various realms. Some people sold drugs to survive. Some people sold their bodies to survive. Some people sell other people out to survive. And I've jumped through timelines like that to come where I'm at now. And the timeline that I will remain in, for me, is the timeline of giving back to the world, giving back to society, putting people in positions of inspiration. I don't got nothing much, you know what I mean? Because it's not about what you have. It's about who you are. You see what I'm saying? You got millionaires that commit suicide. Kill themselves and got 20 million. Man, if I had 20 million, man, I'd be turning up, having a good time with life. Call my kids, hey, yo, pull up. Kids roll on me, hey, we traveling the world, running around, having fun, eating watermelon and ice cream everywhere on the planet. But you got millionaires commit suicide. Know why? Because money can't buy you love. Money can't buy you happiness. You see? So it's a different understanding here. And so when I say, and when I put out the idea that Black trauma, any trauma, even white trauma, white people got trauma. And let me talk about that briefly. White people have trauma too. You don't think they're traumatized? There are white people who are not racist, but because they benefit from white supremacy by default, it traumatizes them, knowing that they get in positions that they're not supposed to be in at the detriment of people of color.